disorienting. A building, a city that used to be to the west of your main city is now to the south or to the north or to the, because this ball just moved all around. So one of the unique challenges was trying to get the player to, and the camera especially, to give the player the freedom they needed to move, but at the same time not make them get lost on the planet's surface. The Diplo game, we started with a very complex Diplo game and backed off from that pretty easily. Pretty quickly. We had a notion that every race would be different. I had this kind of fantasy of not wanting to repeat the same game every time you were trying to befriend someone. So I really wanted you to have to, in The Sims 2, one of the things I wanted to do was to make people do things with other characters that they wouldn't normally do, to encourage them to play in styles that they wouldn't normally play. So we had the Wants and Fears game in Sims 2 that encouraged them to cheat on their spouse or punch somebody or, you know, expose all this gameplay that was in there that nobody, or, you know, the players that were playing traditionally weren't discovering. So I wanted a Diplo game that said, you know, if you went up to a Klingon type race, they would respect you if you shot one of their people, but another race wouldn't respect that, and that you had to figure out this puzzle of how to communicate with each race. It wound up being a little bit ambitious and very tricky to communicate which actions you should do. You know, you use this particular tool in this way, and it's a good thing, but use it in a different way, and it's a different thing. And it wound up being pretty complicated to explain to the player. And ultimately, we're doing a lot of game here, and we need the player to understand what they're doing quicker than that. We also had a notion, both in the Civ game and in Space game, of wanting to deliver. If I attack somebody, then their friends are upset at me, and if I do something nice, then their friends are. If I do something mean, then the people who don't like them like me, and kind of have this, you know, second degree of friendship effects. And that wound up being a model that was fairly complicated, but on the Civ level. And then when we got to Space and tried to do it again, it was too complex. It was overly complex for what the player needed to understand at that point.
And that's a really interesting point. I think for us, because we're not pre-making a lot of the assets, the issue of communication has been a much bigger problem than it usually is. We have weird instances in focus tests where you'll put the player in front of a large beast, and their immediate assumption is this thing is huge and terrifying, when it could be a giant goofy thing, you know? Or they'll look at something, and because it's tiny, they'll think, well, that's easy food, and they'll go up and hit it, but it's just the devil.
It might be a very powerful creature.
Yeah, and so like trying to bond a game where you let people make anything that they want.
Or colors, you know. A lot of games put colors on creatures so that you know what's a big scary colored creature is big and scary, do not approach, and a small soft looking creature. But the way that a player can manipulate the editor, it might be, the opposite might be true.
Yeah.
But we did end up with alliances, you know, basically for the Federation game. So there is a big value to kind of making friends.
Right. What we did is harken back to the creature game with the alliance game, in that when you build alliances, in the creature game, one of your goals near the end of the creature game is to build your posse and have people to kind of fight with you. And in Space, it's been really important to me to, as part of a continuity thread through the rest of the games, Space is this, you know, a vast sandbox at the end of the game. It was really important to me that we harkened back to all the games that came before it. So we really tried to, with the alliance posse that comes to help you in combat, reference the creature posse. One of the best examples of harkening back maybe to the other levels is the Worship game.